Hey there, my name's Jesse, and you're listening to the Deep Lore Boys podcast, where Jackson, Matthew, and I delve into the random, rare, and usually ridiculous pieces of human history.
So, you know the Geneva Conventions? They were suggestions before Canada got involved.
What would I do if I realized I had made a wrong turn onto that bridge?
Can you just be sitting there in Canada and then some dude in a flying canoe shows up and he's like, no time to explain?
Hey guys, do you smell something?
What is
Smells like poutine.
like syrup?
I feel like I can smell, kind of a maple syrup
Kind of
sort of smell.
Bacon? No, not real bacon. Canadian bacon.
Our home
Where is it?
native land.
Do you guys hear that?
What is that?
True patriot love.
What it?
With all our
Oh,
sons
That sound coming from the
combined.
north.
Who are you?
Who goes there?
Who is this?
Reveal yourself.
I ride from the far lands above ye Americans. Above ye geographically, mentally, and otherwise. I am
He's on a
from
moon.
Canada.
Oh,
Did he just say he's mentally superior to us?
are you from the North Pole?
No, I am not an elf.
Canada?
Shut up.
Guys, he's real. Okay, this isn't a hallucination.
He's a real elf.
We've ruled this
I'm
out.
not
We've
an
actually
elf.
made a Christmas elf.
Quit making fun of my height, you jerks.
Guys, we have an authentic Canadian on the podcast. Matthew, you want
We
to
do,
deliver the
yeah.
classic line?
Canadians on the podcast, everybody.
Yo!
Yeah! Woo!
Canadian on the podcast.
So I'm going to give a little context here. Today we've got Sawyer on the podcast. Sawyer is a
Hello.
good buddy of mine. He is a real Canadian.
I like to think that there's more to this guy than just being Canadian.
Did you fly in on a canoe?
I did. And we're going to talk about that canoe right now.
Is this a piece of Canada lore that I'm too American to understand?
It, in fact, is, my good sir. It's called the Chasse Gallery, or
The
La
what?
Chasse Gallery, also known as the Bewitched Canoe, or the Flying Canoe. The story has origins in a French legend about a rich nobleman named Gallery who loved to hunt.
Gallery.
He loved it so much that he refused to attend Sunday Mass. Oh, no.
Oh,
no.
That's not good.
That's a lot of devotion to hunting.
As
Ugh.
punishment for this sin, he was condemned to fly forever through the night skies.
And the devil possessed his canoe.
Yeah, dude.
No.
What?
And so now in this canoe, he's being hunted by galloping horses and howling wolves.
The idea of being hunted by a horse is one of probably the scariest things I've ever
Especially
thought
if
of.
he's stuck in the sky and he can never come down and they're just flying through the sky chasing
Yeah, I
him.
mean, like being
That's
chased by a horse
terrifying.
all on its own is pretty bad, but when you're in a boat and in the sky,
So how does this legend end? Is this basically just where it ends? Is just he's flying in the sky?
As far as I understand, yeah. There seems to be other variations here. I have a lot of questions about how this works. Like, if he jumps off, does he die? Does he just respawn back on the canoe?
They just
You
teleport
know?
him back. He just gets like
Just gets slashed
Yeah,
2 feet if he jumps off, you know?
is it like in Mario Kart when the little cloud guy with the fishing
Yeah,
pole
no,
comes by
he
and
comes-
like whisks
Yeah,
you
it's
up?
like return to the playing field in 5.
Right.
Exactly. Can he does he starve to death? I don't think he's got a food supply up there unless he eats the horses.
Can you just be sitting there in Canada and then some dude in a flying canoe shows up and he's like, no time to explain, get in the boat, and you like climb in and then like some
Right.
horse flies out and he's like, not again.
No.
What do you do?
Well, also, how does he move the canoe if it's in the sky? Like if it's in the water, like you can paddle.
Well, okay, there's another variation. If you wouldn't mind, I might read this one off the wiki as well. After a heavy night of drinking on New Year's Eve, a group of voyagers working at a timber camp far out in the wilderness.
Matthew, hold on. I'm just going to interrupt you here to say this is how all good stories start.
Oh yeah,
This is-
no, I know.
Yep, after a heavy night of drinking on New Year's Eve.
Group of voyagers at a remote timber camp. As it says here, and I love this phrasing, yearn to visit their sweethearts some 100
Oh.
leagues away. However, the only way to make such a long journey and be back in time for work the next morning
Is to bust out the devil boat.
the Chasse Gallery means making a pact with the devil so that their canoe can travel through the air to their destination quickly. However,
Bad
the
idea.
travelers must not mention God's name or touch the cross of any church steeple as they whisk by in the flying canoe.
Which is so easy to do. Like
Oh.
that sounds so incredibly easy.
Well, if you fail, the devil takes their souls. You hear this and you think, oh, all they have to do is not mention God or touch a steeple. Of course, I mean, this should be easy. This really no issue at all. But you forget that this is after a night of heavy drinking. And
Oh, you're
so
right.
they promise,
So-
as they get on the boat, they all promise not to touch another drop of rum and to keep their heads clear. So they take their places. They all sit down and start to paddle. The canoe rises off the ground. Far below, they see the frozen Gatineau River and the villages alongside it. Shiny church steeples in the lights of these villages. And the canoe eventually touches down near a house where New Year's Eve festivities they're raving. It's in full swing. No one questions their arrival. They just see them and think, hey, good to see you. They're all happy and are soon dancing and celebrating as merrily as everyone else.
I'd like to point out this is with their sweethearts. They
Yeah,
arrive.
with their sweethearts
they
that
made
went
it.
home with.
They
Yes,
made
and
it.
after spending time with their sweethearts and enjoying the festivities, they notice how late it is and how they must leave if they are to get back to camp in time for work. As they fly through the moonless night, it becomes apparent that their navigator has been drinking as he steers the
No.
canoe on a dangerously unsteady course. While passing over Montreal, they narrowly miss running into a church steeple, and soon after the canoe ends up stuck in a deep snowdrift. The drunken navigator starts swearing and takes the Lord's name in vain.
Oh.
Terrified the devil will take their souls, the men bind and gag their friend and elect another to steer.
Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up.
No. The navigator soon breaks his bonds and begins swearing again.
So did that navigator just want to swear so bad that he like chewed through the gag just
I
so
guess,
that he could
he
keep...
just like
I do
dug.
find
He
it
was
funny
that
that
angry.
that's exclusively what he was doing while being drunk.
Apparently, Montreal is known by some as the city of 100 steeples. So apparently, it's like the last city I want to be flying over.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad... Surely they could have charted a course around
okay.
the city.
Yeah, that's
These
what I
guys
was
are
kinda
not
thinking.
smart at all.
Hey,
I like
they're trying, okay?
their first plan of action is to go on the devil boat. And the thing about the devil boat here, the bewitched canoe, is that they can't mention God or touch any crosses, and they go through Churchville. You know?
Yeah, like
Right.
that.
Well, no, the first time they went, they promised they weren't going to drink any alcohol, and they seemed sober, because it says that they saw Montreal far below.
Right.
So they
right.
flew way out the way, but then when they were
then the
leaving, the drunk
navigator-
navigator just
Mhm.
flies them through the city.
Yeah, it looks like this is why we don't drink and fly a canoe, okay? This is okay. Still, this story has a much
Yeah.
better ending than I expected. I expected the devil to take their souls, and instead they just hit a tree and fall out. Like
Well,
they,
it
they all...
goes further here. You missed this.
There's
point.
more.
The ending of the story
Oh, is
changes
there
from-
more?
In some versions, the men are sentenced to fly the canoe through hell.
Of course.
Well, okay.
Yeah, so there's that. Or they appear in the sky every New Year's Eve, but all but one version, all the men escape the terms the devil Lucifer made.
Yeah, so there is a good ending, but it never tells us how. How do they escape these conditions?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I think the devil just like rents them the boat for a night.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you?
I imagine that they were all sitting in a circle, like sharing their woes. Like, I really miss Mary. I really miss Sally. And one guy just puffs a cigarette and goes, I know a guy.
Yeah,
And they all just...
They
They'll
just get
in the
hooked
boat.
up with the devil boat. Like,
Yeah, they all just...
Right.
see,
I
this
like
brings
this...
up a lot of questions. Like, when and how did they acquire it?
Well, evidently they had to talk to the devil about it, so maybe they just hit him up. They're like, hey, man, you know this boat you have?
What does the devil gain from this pact?
He definitely stands to gain their souls. He's probably seeing, oh, here's a bunch of drunk buffoons.
Everything is laid bare. There is no mystery here. The conditions are set in stone, and there's no
Yeah.
trickery around it. It just kind
No,
of
it's clear.
it's a cursed item.
Yeah, like
It really is. Yeah.
Dude, they should definitely make a movie about this.
What would you call it? What would be the name? Like, the devil went down to
The
Montreal.
devil one.
The Boys and the Boat. That's what I would call it.
Do you think that these guys, like in the Canadian military, used this during World War I and World War II?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this would
I-
revolutionize warfare. The Canadians don't fight, though. Canadians, they don't go to war. They're too nice.
I have some news for you. So, you know the Geneva Conventions?
Well, yeah, that wasn't in Canada, though.
No. But I'm just saying a couple on the list there, they were suggestions before Canada got involved. So,
Do we want to transition into our second topic of the night, Canadian war crimes?
we do,
Oh,
and I
no.
do have an article about, not on Wikipedia, but it's called The Forgotten Ruthlessness of Canada's Great War Soldiers. Now, okay, you guys remember that story about the like Christmas truce?
Yeah. That was during World War One.
Yeah. Well, the Canadians were actually briefly a part of it. The year before had seen the famous Christmas truce. Okay, so they tried to do that truce again with Canada. Merry Christmas, Canadians, said the opposing Germans, poking their heads above the parapet and waving a box of cigarettes. A Canadian sergeant responded by opening fire, hitting two of the merrymakers.
Oh, that's so mean. Can you imagine being those Germans and being like, guys, no, remember we did it last year, it'll be fine. And the other buddy's like, I don't know, man.
I don't think they're full of the Christmas spirit.
No,
Look
we
at
did
them.
it last time. Come on. Peek their heads up and just
Blasted.
dude, that's awful.
So in the trenches, you know, there'd be like weeks on end where they'd be fighting the same opponents in Dead Man's Land and stuff like that, right? However, Canada regularly got rations and stuff, and that the position where the Germans were, it was kind of harder for them to get food and whatnot. So the Canadians took their spare rations and day by day would throw them over into no man's land, and then when the Germans would see it, run for the rations and grab it. And this just became a common routine over weeks until eventually the rations suddenly were grenades.
No, like that. Yeah, that's brutal. That's awful, but that is smart.
Germans said they were going to chill out, and then their trust was betrayed. That's what you get. Like, there is an image in this article of them training, bayonet fighting against a dummy resembling a German soldier.
I mean, they are fighting Germans. Like, what else are they going to train?
Okay, hold up. What I'd like to point out is that they decided to have a dummy for bayonet training, but the dummy is being, like, handled by a normal guy. Why not just train against the guy directly?
Well, because if
Like,
you
kill him?
stab him, he does die.
I know, true.
I mean, why not just use a human being? Why experiment on guinea pigs? Like, over the real thing.
No, you don't have to get to the part of stabbing. Fencing exists.
They could just use like a
Like,
blunt bayonet too, I suppose.
You can. There's
yeah.
ways.
That would still hurt.
Look, you're not fighting like Raggedy Ann, okay?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That sounds more terrifying.
That sounds
than the
horrific,
Canadians.
dude.
Man, apparently the Germans were not exactly fond of the Canadians for this either.
No.
Canadian Fred Hamilton described being singled out for a beating by a German colonel. And the German colonel said, I don't care for the English, Scotch, French, Australians, or Belgians, but you Canadians. You take no prisoners and you kill your wounded.
Did they like coat their prisoners in syrup or something? Like, what did they do?
English poet Robert Graves wrote, the troops that had the worst reputation for acts of violence against prisoners were the Canadians.
Yep.
Really? Man, so I guess Canada isn't really as peaceful as a lot of Americans think. Dude, this is all like a revelation to me, though, because like I did not realize that Canada was this brutal in the First World War.
You barely realized
Yeah,
Canada was a real place when we started this podcast.
I didn't know Canada was a real
I mean,
place. I thought it was fake.
my brain expanded really quick.
There is so much stuff in this article that I didn't even see before. Wow. Throughout the war, stretches of the Western Front observed an unofficial live and let live policy between Germans and their French or British enemies by mutual agreement. Both sides agreed not to attack the other unless ordered and would even schedule truces for meals and bathroom breaks. There are very few recorded instances of this ever happening with Canadians. As Canadian Corps Commander Arthur Currie would often boast after the war, his troops pride themselves on killing the enemy wherever and whenever they could. And, quote, we tried to make their lives miserable.
And PvP was always enabled.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Basically, what the Canadians said, what I'm reading here, is basically their policy was, if we're going to go fight this war in Europe, we're going to win, and we're not going to pull our punches. We're just going to get it done without mercy.
Yeah, that sounds like that's what they were doing.
Canada did eventually pass a anti-war crimes pact, but this was on the 24th of June, 2000.
Wow.
It took them a long time.
It took them a long
Wow.
time before they agreed to not doing any more war crimes.
Yeah.
So, and also there was another one targeting Nazi war criminals, but hear me out here. That one, when do you think that was passed?
19.
Oh, I don't want to
2014.
guess.
All right, so it was 1987, which was a little
Okay.
bit after World War II, if you ask
Yeah.
It's
me.
a little late, yeah.
They ended up arresting a couple of Nazis by the looks of it, and eventually arrested somebody in 2005 who had engaged in Rwanda.
Wait, so anybody who had committed war crimes in Canada, they just decided, nah, you're good?
No, anybody that committed war crimes in Canada, they decided to arrest.
Okay, so anybody who did a devious in war.
Was later on arrested though. But even this, like, it just seems so much later than stuff. Like, it's good that they passed it, but like, and I'm sure they had stuff against war crimes before this. They can't have not. But like 2000 and then again like 1987 for Nazis, like, wow, this was really late.
And I can tell you that the guys who got arrested for doing that probably went with pride.
Yeah, they sound like they didn't really regret anything.
I will say, them deciding in 86 that, war crimes are bad, kind of reminds me, this isn't at all related to Canada at all, but you guys know how Galileo, decided back in the 1600s that maybe the Earth orbits the sun and not the other way around. He's like, hear me out.
Right.
Ergocentrism. And they're like, no, heliocentrism. And they hated that. He got excommunicated for that. So legally speaking, he went to hell. The Catholic Church never actually accepted heliocentrism as a model from his viewpoint and admitted that they were wrong and Galileo was right until 1991. It took them that long to decide that, you know what, let's unexcommunicate Galileo. He was.
Oh, wow. Okay, so maybe official policies like that just take a while to get around.
It just took a while. It took them over 300 years to decide. I guess.
There was this guy, he was a 60-year-old California man, and he was arrested at the Canadian border, I guess in 2023. Wait, is this a news story?
Apparently.
Different guy?
Hold on. Okay, I clicked on the wrong article. This is not the story I thought it was, but I'm going to continue with it anyway.
This is a new guy.
A 60-year-old California man. We'll go back to the original story, but this guy was arrested at the Canadian border in June of this year with 400 pounds of cannabis and more than $600,000 in his car. He accidentally ended up on the Rainbow Bridge. He made a wrong turn and got on the bridge and then realized I can't turn back.
What do you do at that point?
Well, you can't turn around because that's illegal.
Yeah. He played himself. He really did.
I think the one that I meant to tell was from 2015. A 26-year-old Canadian man was arrested after trying to smuggle 52 kilograms of cocaine from Detroit into Windsor. He also, I think, accidentally ended up on the bridge to Canada.
We'll leave it to Canada to just be there on accident. Why is there so many drug busts by people turning into Canada?
How often does this happen? Is this
this happens a shocking amount of times.
It's just an everyday occurrence in Canada? They just,
this is more than how many nickels Dr. Doofenshmirtz has, bro.
For real. If I had a nickel for every time a drug dealer made a wrong turn into Canada.
So it was a wrong turn, and once you're on the Peace Bridge, it is very hard to get off of it. So there is no way for you to get rid of all of that.
It's like being strapped on a roller coaster and you can see that it's completely shattered up ahead.
You know what he should have done? He should have taken the bewitched canoe.
He could have just done that. He could have
That would have
flown
been
a
so much
canoe.
easier.
Come on, Satan.
The canoe, just like.
When I was reading this article like a few months ago, I couldn't help but think about the fact of like, what would I do if I realized I had made a wrong turn onto that bridge? My guess, you can pretend to get sick in your car and then like try to like hurl it up over the side.
Oh, Jackson, you're a genius.
What, you're gonna like pull over and pretend to throw up over the Peace Bridge and drop
That's
13
smart.
pounds?
That is the only way that I could think of to possibly not get busted with this.
Okay, that's better than the alternative. I don't think it's gonna work, but what else do you have? I mean, like.
I guess you could consider smoking all of it at once.
No, officer.
I've got a better
No, I'm
plan,
fine, officer.
It looks like he actually never got to the Canada side. It looks like he tried to make a U-turn, and that's why they busted
Oh,
him.
that's what got him?
They were like, hey.
Yeah,
Dude,
so
this
it's
is
not
the
even like...
perfect example of just life isn't always about knowing what to do in a situation, but rather knowing what to do to not get yourself into these situations.
I feel like it can't be that hard, though, to pretend to vomit and throw all of it over the Peace Bridge.
There is no way. Like, it doesn't look like vomit. It looks like several bags of
If you're
marijuana.
hanging over the railing, is anybody gonna look at you? Like,
Yeah.
really?
Guy pulls over on the bridge, stumbles out of the car, and starts throwing bags over the edge of the bridge while going.
Not if he's making vomiting noises. If you just hear the sound of splashing in the water below. I mean,
Well,
I
the
think.
thing is, if you do
I'm
it
sorry,
on the...
can
I'm not
see
interrupting
him.
him.
You can see him. He's
They
right
can't see
there.
what's in the water.
Yeah, but there's
Yeah,
only
I mean-
guards on either end.
That's the thing. Are they watching under the bridge?
Throwing up like that isn't gonna make that loud a splash unless you just threw up your entire
Like,
internal
I'm not
organs.
saying that it's going to work. Okay, I'm just saying.
But it doesn't look like vomit. It does not.
It
like, you're
doesn't
better
have
off just
to.
getting out and shamelessly hurling it
Justin,
over
you
the
seem
bridge.
to think that like there's guards all over the Peace Bridge. The truth is, there's not. There's only like check-in points on one end and the other end.
No, I've
So, like,
driven
you do
over
it-
the Peace Bridge several
Like,
times.
you do it in the middle of the Peace Bridge. None of the guards are going to see it. It's just going to be
That's
like
what I'm
maybe
saying.
one
They're
person in
not
the car.
going to be looking under the bridge. They won't know what you're throwing. You could be throwing like $1 billion in cash.
I mean, do we know what time this was at? If it's at night, then that's a
Yeah, if
pretty
this
good
was
way
at
of getting
night,
away
then
with
he's
it.
fine. Like
Yeah.
he's set for life. Like no problem.
I guess you run the risk of having the Dave Matthews Band Chicago River Incident 2.
Okay, to everybody in Buffalo and in Canada, and really just passing through, if you have weed or really any drug, please do not go on the Peace Bridge. That is like the
That's the
dumbest
only,
idea.
literally the only
didn't mean
place you
to.
don't have to go.
None of these guys mean to. They just need a GPS. No, they had a GPS and they still made the wrong
Yeah,
turn.
in one case, the GPS was just faulty.
GPS, take me home. Going to Canada.
No.
Dang it, not again.
That right there is when you make a deal with Satan for the.
Yeah, that's when you
the flying
call in
canoe.
the flying canoe.
All right. Well, I gotta find my way home here. The canoe left without me.
Oh,
The devil just took it away.
Yeah. The rent came up, you know.
Yeah.
Sawyer, let us help you out here. You've been such a great guest. It's been an honor to have you on. We'll do you a solid here. Climb in, or I'll send you back to Canada in this bad boy.
Yeah.
All right, bye, Sawyer.
And take
Okay.
a cheeseburger while you're
Well,
at it.
I'm fine with wet
It's-
socks. This is fine.
Yeah, this is the porcelain teleporter right here.
The port. Okay.
Yeah, this will take you right back to Canada. Jackson, you want to send him off?
Sure, all right.
Get back from where you came.
Canada.
All right, farewell, Sawyer. It has been an honor, my good
Bye.
man.
I'll see you around.
Well, that was weird.
That was weird.
Wow, can you believe that guy?
Canadians are actually real.
Dude, I think that was the weirdest event that's ever happened on the podcast so far.
I'm not sure I'd take it that far. There was still that one time with the one guy, but
You guys want to go get some burgers and measure things
Yeah.
in feet?
I feel like I need to kind of like cleanse myself a little bit.
My GPS is taking us across the Peace Bridge for some reason. Just trying to get to
Dude,
Five Guys.
Hide the weed. Hide the weed.
Oh, quick, Jackson, hurl it over the edge.
Throw it overboard.
Hey again, it's Jesse. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Deep Lore Boys podcast. If you had fun, please share this episode with one of your non-reptilian friends, and we'll see you next time. Until then, I hope your day is nothing short of interesting. Take care.
I'm gonna go post that one on twitter.com.